Everyone knows Jerry Garcia's sound, that liquid, searching guitar tone that defined the Grateful Dead for 3 decades. But what most people don't know is where it actually came from. September 5th, 1973. There's a Hells Angels wedding happening on a boat called the Bay Bell in the San Francisco Bay. The PA system keeps flickering out. Bikers are dancing on the deck, and on this tiny makeshift stage, Jerry Garcia is leaning into a reggae groove. The Harder They Come by Jimmy Cliff. Next to him, there's this organist with the biggest smile you've ever seen, keeping the whole thing locked in while the boat rocks. His name is Merl Saunders, and he's the reason the Dead sound the way they do. Not Phil Lesh, not Bobby Weir, not even Jerry himself. It was a jazz organist from San Francisco who taught Jerry Garcia how to actually play music, how to hear it differently, how to stop thinking and start feeling. This is the story nobody talks about. Late 1970, the Grateful Dead had just dropped American Beauty. Ripple, Broke Down Palace, Friend of the Devil, the whole album was perfect. By all accounts, they should have been satisfied. But Jerry was restless. He'd been playing the same changes, the same folk rock progressions for years. And yeah, they were great at it, but Jerry wanted something new, something that challenged him. So he started showing up at this little club called The Matrix in San Francisco, just to watch, just to absorb. Merl Saunders was the house organist. Every week, same gig, playing jazz standards and R&B covers to whoever wandered in. Dude was a U.S. Air Force veteran who'd been grinding through the jazz and soul circuits since the 50s. He'd played with everyone, Miles Davis cats, R&B legends, Latin jazz groups. He knew his stuff, like really knew it. One night, Merl noticed Jerry in the crowd and invited him up to sit in. No big announcement, no fanfare, just, hey, you want to play? And something clicked. They jammed on I Second That Emotion, the Smokey Robinson tune. Then some Ray Charles, just feeling it out, seeing where the music took them. And Jerry realized pretty quickly that he was out of his depth. Not in a bad way, in the best way possible. See, Merl was showing him things Jerry had never learned. Art Tatum runs, these cascading impossible piano lines that somehow worked on organ. Bebop chord substitutions where you'd replace a major chord with a diminished and make the whole progression more interesting. Jazz harmony that had nothing to do with the blues-based rock Jerry had been playing. Jerry later admitted, and this is a direct quote, "He filled me in on all those years of things I didn't do. He taught me music." Think about that for a second. Jerry Garcia, the guy everyone considers a guitar god, is basically saying he didn't actually understand music until Merl showed him. Those late-night sessions became weekly gigs, every Monday at the Matrix. Word got around and people started showing up specifically to watch them. But it never got too big. That was the point. It was just 2 guys exploring sounds. Jerry would show up early sometimes just to watch Merl's hands on the Hammond B3 organ, the way he'd voice chords, the way he'd leave space in the right hand so the bass line could breathe, the way he'd build a groove from nothing and lock it in so tight you couldn't escape it. Everything that makes Jerry Garcia sound like Jerry Garcia, that melodic approach, that way of implying harmonies instead of stating them, that ability to make space inside the music. It all starts in that room with Merl. By 1972, they'd formalized the whole thing. Merl Saunders, Jerry Garcia, bassist John Kahn, and drummer Bill Vitt. They called it the Merl Saunders and Jerry Garcia Band. Not catchy, but accurate. The Dead were off tour, which meant Jerry had time, real time, and the Keystone Berkeley became their laboratory. They recorded 2 albums during this period, Heavy Turbulence and Fire Up. These records are wild if you actually listen to them. Original instrumentals like La La, this funky jazz fusion thing that goes places, sitting right next to standards like My Funny Valentine. Jerry's playing stuff the Dead would never touch. Tender ballads, straight-ahead bebop, soul grooves. But it's the live shows at the Keystone in July of '73 where everything really gels. They'd open with Positively 4th Street, the Dylan tune, but stretched out, exploratory, with Merl's organ painting these psychedelic colors behind Jerry's lead. Then they'd pivot into The Harder They Come, and suddenly it's reggae, full reggae groove. Jerry playing choppy upstrokes like he's Peter Tosh, Merl laying down this hypnotic skank rhythm on the keys. Then, without warning, they'd slide into I Second That Emotion, and now it's Motown. Smooth, soulful, everybody locked in the pocket. No boundaries, no genre rules, just vibes. And here's what's crucial. Jerry's not the leader here. Merl's running the show. He's calling the changes, setting the tempo, deciding when to stretch out and when to bring it home. Jerry's following, listening, responding. For a guy who was basically the reluctant leader of the Grateful Dead, handling all the musical decisions, all the pressure, all the expectations, this must have been a massive relief. He could just play. He could be the sideman. He could explore without 50,000 people waiting for Trucking or Sugar Magnolia. There's this incredible quote from Ron Tutt, who'd end up drumming with them later. He said he'd be playing with Jerry one night in a t-shirt and the next night with Elvis in a rhinestone jumpsuit. Two completely different musical universes. And honestly, Jerry probably preferred the t-shirt nights. The Keystone recordings that survived are pretty raw. You can hear the PA system straining. You can hear people talking in the crowd. But you can also hear the chemistry, the way they'd lock into a groove and just ride it. The way Merl would throw in a chord substitution and Jerry would immediately respond with the perfect melodic line. That's not rehearsed, that's listening. Summer of 1974, the lineup evolved again. Saxophonist Martin Fierro joined up. Dude had played with everyone from Malo to Santana. Ron Tutt came in on drums, bringing this rock-solid backbeat from his years with Elvis. The music got bigger, more adventurous, more jazz-oriented. They needed a new name because the band didn't sound like the old one anymore. So they're sitting around trying to figure something out, throwing ideas around, and bassist John Kahn, who was always the quiet, serious one, just blurts out, "Legion of Mary." Nobody knew what it meant, still don't really, but it sounded cool, so that's what they went with. Legion of Mary leaned even harder into jazz and funk. They're covering Stevie Wonder's Creeping, and not the radio version, the actual album version from Talking Book, with all the changes intact. They're playing Jimmy Cliff reggae tunes, Alan Toussaint New Orleans grooves like Freedom for the Stallion. They're stretching out on Miles Davis modal jazz concepts. Jerry called it his low-pressure escape. He told an interviewer, and this quote matters, "We play other people's songs and just have a good time. Low profile is more desirable for me. I couldn't take the pressure of being a double celebrity." Double celebrity, that's how he saw it. The Dead were getting huge, like stadium huge. And the last thing Jerry wanted was another project where people analyzed his every note. So Legion of Mary stayed small. Club gigs, college shows, intimate venues where they could experiment without the weight of expectations. Ron Tutt said the band was more like a jazz group than anything rock. And you can hear it in the recordings. The arrangements are loose. They're listening to each other in real time, building these improvisations that don't follow any rock formula. It's all about the groove, the feel, the conversation happening between the instruments. April of 1975, they did this insane tour. 25 shows in 17 days across the Northeast. Boston, Philly, New York, brutal schedule, but they were locked in. Except they weren't, not completely. Critics started noticing problems, tempo issues on My Problem's Got Problems. The band couldn't agree on whether it should swing or lay back. Transitions that didn't quite land. Some nights were magical, other nights felt like a struggle. By July, it was over. The group disbanded without much fanfare. No official announcement, just done. Jerry rebranded the whole thing as the Jerry Garcia Band, brought in different keyboard players, Keith and Donna Godcho initially, then later Melvin Seals, and moved in a different direction. More rock, more accessible, more Dead adjacent. Merl wasn't part of it anymore. And for a lot of Deadheads, that's where the story ends. Jerry moved on, Legion of Mary became a footnote, and Merl faded into history. But that's not what actually happened. Their musical partnership might have ended on stage, but the friendship? That didn't. Jerry kept visiting Merl's house in the Bay Area. He even left a guitar there permanently so they could jam whenever the mood hit. No agenda, no recordings. Just two guys who loved playing music together, passing the time, exploring ideas. And then, 1986 happened. Jerry slipped into a diabetic coma. When he finally woke up, he was alive, just barely, but something was wrong. His hands didn't work right. His fingers wouldn't form the shapes he needed. His brain couldn't remember the muscle memory he'd built over 30 years of playing. He couldn't play guitar anymore. Guess who showed up at his house with a guitar and said, "Let's start from the beginning"? Merl Saunders, the same guy who taught him bebop runs back in '70. Now he's sitting there, patient as hell, reteaching Jerry the basics. How to hold the instrument, how to form a C chord, how to find the groove again. I mean, think about that level of friendship. Merl didn't have to do that. Jerry wasn't paying him. There was no gig at the end of it. He did it because that's what you do when your friend needs help. And Jerry came back, not the same player. Nobody comes back from something like that exactly the same. But he came back. The Dead toured for another 9 years because Merl Saunders helped Jerry remember how to play. That story alone should cement Merl's legacy, but he wasn't done. In 1990, he released Blues from the Rainforest, this wild experimental album blending new age, world music, and environmental activism. He recorded it in Brazil, mixing rainforest sounds with jazz and funk. It was weird. It was ambitious. It was exactly what Merl always did, push boundaries. He collaborated with Mickey Hart on multiple projects. He jammed with younger bands like Fish, showing them what it meant to really improvise, to really listen. He mentored an entire generation of keyboard players who wanted to understand what made the jam band scene work. Dude was in his 60s and 70s, refusing to be some nostalgia act. Still innovating, still teaching, still playing like it mattered. Merl had a stroke in 2002, kept playing anyway. His left hand didn't work as well, but he adapted, found new ways to voice chords, kept gigging. He passed away in 2008 at 74 years old. The obituaries called him the godfather of jam bands. Mickey Hart called him the bridge between jazz and rock. But honestly, all those titles undersell what he actually did. Every groove the Grateful Dead played after '73 has Merl's fingerprints on it. Every time Jerry would lock into a pocket that felt effortless, like on Sugaree or Mission in the Rain, that was Merl's influence. The way Jerry approached improvisation in the 80s and 90s, the way he listened inside the changes instead of just playing over them, the way he could make a simple 3-chord song feel like a journey. That all came from those late nights at the Matrix. We celebrate the songs, we memorize the set lists, we debate the best versions of Dark Star and trade bootlegs of the Cornell 77 show. But we miss the mentors. Merl Saunders brought bebop into Jerry's fingers. He brought reggae into his ears. He brought funk into the Dead's DNA. And he did it quietly, without demanding credit, without needing the spotlight, just because he loved the music and wanted to share it. His story reminds us that musical revolutions don't always happen on the main stage at Madison Square Garden. Sometimes they happen in smoky clubs at 2 a.m. with a handful of people watching. Sometimes they happen when a jazz organist invites a rock guitarist to sit in and says, "Let me show you something." And sometimes those moments change everything. The next time you hear Jerry Garcia play, whether it's a Dead show, a Jerry Garcia band recording, or one of those Merl Saunders collaborations, listen for the space, the way the notes breathe, the way the groove just exists without being forced. That's Merl. That's the revolution nobody talks about.